At 4 in the morning, on one of the loneliest stretches of highway on Earth, a family watched the ground ahead of them begin to glow. What happened next left dents in their car roof, ash in their lungs, and a story that has never been fully explained. But that is not even the strangest thing hidden here. Somewhere beneath the wheels of every vehicle that crosses this plain lie as many as 20,000 narrow shafts sunk into solid rock, each one slowly inhaling and exhaling with the changing pressure of the sky, as if the ground itself were breathing. Geologists have mapped this place for over 100 years. They still don't know how deep it goes, how far it stretches, or how much of it has never been seen by human eyes. This is the Nullarbor Plain, and what lies beneath its surface is far more dangerous than anything that has ever happened above it. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to uncovering the geological mysteries and ancient histories hidden across our planet, the places science is still trying to fully explain. If that sounds like your kind of journey, hit subscribe now, because today we're going beneath one of the strangest landscapes on Earth. To understand why the Nullarbor Plain unsettles even seasoned geologists, you first have to understand just how strange this place is on the surface alone. Stretching across the southern edge of Australia, straddling the border of South Australia and Western Australia, the Nullarbor covers roughly 200,000 square kilometres, an area larger than some countries. Its name comes from Latin, nullus arbor, meaning no trees, a label given by European surveyors who found almost nothing growing across its horizon. Some of the First Nations people whose country this is called it Uundiri instead. The waterless, a name that speaks less to what is missing above ground, and more to what is happening below it. Because the Nullarbor is not, geologically speaking, a desert in the way most people imagine. It is limestone, nearly all of it. Tens of millions of years ago, this entire region sat at the bottom of a shallow tropical sea, built up layer by layer from marine sediment and the skeletal remains of ancient sea life. When the sea retreated, it left behind one of the largest single continuous slabs of limestone bedrock found anywhere on the planet, flat almost beyond belief, with an average slope of less than 1 degree across its entire span. Limestone dissolves. Slowly, patiently, over millions of years, weakly acidic rainwater has eaten through this rock from below, carving out a hidden architecture of tunnels, chambers, and shafts. Today, as many as 20,000 of these openings, known locally as blowholes, puncture the surface. Some are barely wide enough for a human arm. Others, like the entrance to Knowles Cave, are wide enough to swallow a house. Roughly 50 of these caves plunge deep enough to reach the water table, anywhere from 30 to over 100 metres down, opening into vast chambers and still, dark lakes that feel untouched by time. Where the plain finally meets the ocean, it doesn't slope gently into the water. It simply stops, dropping in sheer limestone cliffs among the longest unbroken sea cliffs found anywhere on the planet. Above ground, the Nullarbor looks like nothing at all. Below it, geologists are still trying to work out exactly how much is actually down there. Long before any of this was measured or mapped, it was already known. The Yirrkala Mirning people have called this coastline and the plain behind it home for more than 65,000 years, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. In Mirning tradition, this entire landscape was shaped by Jidara, the great ancestral white whale, a dreaming being who travelled down from the Milky Way to create the world of the Bight. According to the stories still told by Mirning elders today, Jidara transformed into Bayangu, a great burrowing spirit in the shape of a white porcupine, and it was this form that clawed the escarpment upward to hold back the sea, and dug down into the earth, carving the very caves that riddle the plain. One story, shared among the different Aboriginal groups whose country borders the Nullarbor, tells of the Seven Sisters, the star cluster we call the Pleiades, pursuing Jidara across the sky until the great whale fled into hiding, retreating into the caves of the Nullarbor to escape them. The caves, in other words, were never just holes in the ground. They were understood as a refuge for something ancient and immensely powerful, and not a place to be entered lightly. Nowhere is that reverence more visible than at Knowles Cave, reached by descending an 85-metre sinkhole into total darkness. More than 300 metres inside, in a chamber that has never once seen daylight, archaeologists found something extraordinary. Thousands of lines etched directly into the soft limestone walls by human fingertips. Known as finger flutings, these markings have been dated to at least 20,000 years old, among the oldest confirmed artworks anywhere on the continent. Later, the same cave became a sacred whale dreaming site, used for men's initiation ceremonies passed down across countless generations. To this day, Mirning elders describe snakes encountered near these entrances not as a danger to avoid, but as recognised guardians of the caves themselves, protectors of a threshold that should not be crossed without the right knowledge, the right ceremony, the right respect. This was never a culture that feared the Nullarbor out of ignorance. It was a culture that walked directly into its darkest places, deliberately, for tens of thousands of years, and understood, long before any outsider arrived, exactly how much power the ground beneath this plain actually held. That knowledge did not transfer easily to the first Europeans who arrived. In 1841, explorer Edward John Eyre led the first recorded overland crossing of the Nullarbor, accompanied by his overseer John Baxter and 3 Aboriginal guides. Months into the journey, with horses dying of thirst and rations nearly gone, desperation split the group. On the night of April 29th, 2 of the guides attempted to desert with the remaining weapons and supplies. Baxter woke to stop them and was shot dead on the spot. The ground was solid rock, and Eyre couldn't even dig a grave. He wrapped his friend's body in a blanket and left it exposed on the plain, continuing on with only one companion left. It would be almost 40 years before Baxter's remains were recovered. His skull was never found. To this day, no one knows where the rest of him was finally laid to rest. More than a century later, in January of 1988, a caving expedition led by Andrew White was preparing to leave Panican Plain Cave after weeks of underwater survey work, when a freak storm struck without warning. Flash floodwater poured into the entrance, triggering a collapse that sealed the team more than 80 metres underground. For 2 desperate days, the trapped cavers searched for any alternate route to the surface, while rescuers above worked blind, with no way of knowing whether anyone below was still alive. Every one of them eventually made it out. The story would later inspire the Hollywood film Sanctum. That same January, only weeks later, a family driving through the dead of night along the Eyre Highway would make headlines around the world. The Knowles family described a glowing, egg-shaped object that dropped onto the road ahead of them, chased their car, and appeared to lift it briefly off the ground. When they finally reached the town of Ceduna, hysterical and shaking, police documented 4 distinct dents pressed into the vehicle's roof, a fine black ash coating the exterior, and a shredded tyre. To this day, it remains one of the most thoroughly documented UFO encounters ever recorded in Australia, and the danger has never fully stopped. Elite cave divers still return to the Nullabor's flooded tunnels today, some of the longest and least explored underwater cave systems on the planet, often warned beforehand by their own doctors that survival is not guaranteed. Meanwhile, above ground, livestock and wildlife continue to vanish without a trace, swallowed by blowholes so well disguised in the flat terrain that even people who have crossed this plain for decades say you never see the hole until you are already standing on top of it. If you're waiting for the supernatural explanation behind that glowing light on the highway, keep watching. Because what investigators actually discovered when they looked closer is far stranger than any alien theory. And if mysteries like this fascinate you as much as they fascinate us, subscribe now, because we uncover a new one every single week. After the Knowles case made headlines, the theories multiplied fast. Some claimed the Nullarbor sat above a hidden military testing zone. Others pointed to reports of strange lights going back decades, and suggested the plain was Australia's own Bermuda Triangle, a dead zone where compasses failed, engines stalled, and something from beyond simply didn't want to be found. A few insisted the caves themselves were the real source, home to some kind of unexplained magnetic or electromagnetic anomaly bleeding up through the limestone. Investigators took the case seriously enough to dig into it properly. Police and UFO researchers in South Australia gathered physical evidence from the Knowles vehicle, the ash, the dents, the damaged tyre, while independent atmospheric researchers began looking at exactly where and when these lights tend to appear. What they found pointed towards something explainable, if still genuinely eerie. The Nullarbor is one of the flattest, driest, most light pollution-free stretches of land on the planet, and it regularly produces powerful temperature inversions, layers of warm air trapping cooler air beneath them near the ground. Under the right conditions, these inversions can bend and magnify distant light sources, stretching the headlights of a truck or the glow of a roadhouse many kilometres away into a shape that appears to hover, pulse, and even move independently just above the road. It's the same optical family as a desert mirage, only vertical and only visible under very specific atmospheric conditions, found almost nowhere else as reliably as here. Around the same time, satellite imagery revealed something else strange scarred into the plain, a massive ring-shaped structure, over a kilometre wide, that geologists initially suspected might be Australia's first confirmed meteorite impact crater, physical proof that something from space had struck this secretive plain directly. Closer investigation ruled that out too. The ring, they discovered, was the fossilised remnant of an ancient microbial reef built by sea life roughly 14 million years ago, long before any impact could ever have occurred. Between the light and the ring, two of the Nullarbor's biggest supernatural claims collapsed under direct scientific scrutiny. No aliens confirmed, no impact, no hidden military base ever proven. And yet, strangely, ruling out the extraordinary didn't make investigators any more comfortable standing on this ground. If anything, it made the ordinary explanation considerably harder to ignore. Because once you strip away the aliens and the impact craters, what's actually sitting beneath the Nullarbor Plain is, in its own way, just as terrifying. This is one of the largest karst cave systems on Earth, a limestone plateau the size of a small country, hollowed out beneath by millions of years of dissolution, and to this day, the overwhelming majority of it has never been fully explored. New caves are still being discovered every few years, often only by accident, spotted from the air as faint shadows in otherwise featureless ground. Beneath your feet, at almost any point on this plain, there is a real, measurable chance that solid ground is not actually solid at all. The blowholes that seem to breathe aren't a haunting. They're physics, vast pockets of trapped air responding to shifts in atmospheric pressure, pushed and pulled through thousands of narrow shafts connected to a labyrinth whose true scale has never been fully measured. But that doesn't make them any less lethal. Many of these openings give no warning whatsoever from ground level. People have walked, driven and ridden directly up to the edge of an 85-metre drop without seeing it coming. Then there's the water, or rather the absence of it. Rain that falls here vanishes almost instantly, swallowed by the porous limestone before it can pool on the surface. Combined with a horizon so flat and featureless that travellers can lose all sense of direction within minutes. And temperature swings brutal enough to kill within days, the Nullarbor has quietly built one of the most efficient natural death traps on the continent, long before a single cave ever collapses or a single sinkhole opens. This is exactly what the old stories were describing. Not a monster in the dark, but a landscape genuinely capable of taking a life in half a dozen different ways, sometimes without a single visible warning sign. The ancient warnings about a dangerous, guarded world beneath this plain were never superstition. In every practical sense, they were correct. In the end, the Nullarbor doesn't need aliens or ancient curses to earn its reputation. Science and 65,000 years of Mirning knowledge arrive from two completely different directions. At the exact same warning, respect what you cannot see. The ground here has always been more than it appears, hollow, breathing, and largely unmapped even now. So what do you think is still waiting to be discovered beneath the Nullarbor Plain? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey into one of the planet's strangest landscapes, subscribe for more, because we're only just getting started.